There was a lot to take in last night. I thought that the Cowboys would keep it close. I thought it was going to be a 3-point game. Ended up a 4-point game, and Dallas probably should have won that game. Because if you look at the first half back and forth, and Dallas was kind of holding its own, no Jalen Carter, they took advantage of that. CeeDee Lamb looked great. You know, it's probably hard to say this, but it's true. CeeDee Lamb had 7 catches for 110 yards and didn't have a good game because in the second half, he cost them dearly. And coming into this season, he has had 4 career games with 3 or more drops. That's more than any player since 2020. Stat of the day, brought to you by Panini America, the official trading cards of the Dan Patrick Show. This is one of those games that if you put it in a time capsule and people go, how good was Jalen Hurts? Now, aside from the Super Bowls, but if you said just a regular season game, let me see something. Let me see why he's a top 5 quarterback. That would have been the game last night. Because Saquon Barkley was good. A.J. Brown, non-existent. Devontae Smith had a couple of catches in there. But if I combine all their yards, I don't even think they have 100 yards total. That was Jalen Hurts. So you have your best defensive player who's out, and he seemed to take over the moment. He did the right thing at the right time. First incompletion was in the second quarter. He played great. And he took advantage of the middle of the field when he was running, when he was back to pass, and then decided to get out of the pocket and ran for a couple of touchdowns. That was all Jalen Hurts last night. The best player on the field. And now I know his odds to win the MVP. I don't even think he's a top 5 MVP candidate because he's not going to put up incredible numbers. This is a guy who played quarterback last night. This wasn't a guy who was passing. He was a quarterback last night. And this goes with game managing, which I know that there are quarterbacks who think that, this is a disparaging remark, and it's not. It's understanding what you need to do. And he did it. If I said game master instead of game manager, is that better? Because that's what this is. To me, that was old school football of, I don't care what my numbers are, we're going to win. And he proved that whatever you needed him to do last night, he did. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. Now, I've said on record, I didn't think he was a great quarterback. I just think he's great for that team. And we're going to hold it against him that he's got maybe the best front office in football. And you got Saquon there. You got an incredible offensive line. You got 2 good receivers, a good tight end. And it's almost like, Jalen Hurts kind of had a head start here. He's got a lot of talent around him. Well, so did Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, the best coach in the NFL, a great GM, Hall of Fame tight end, Tyreek Hill. You had a good offensive line. Like, he had a head start too. I think we grade Jalen Hurts on a curve that somehow, but watch last night. Yeah, but last night he did what you want your quarterback to do. And it was wonderful to watch. Brilliant. Surgical. Yes, Marvin.
I think the main reason why it's going to be so tough to him for him to win league MVP is because he's going to get dinged for his team being so good. Because somebody's going to say, if I had that team, of course, I'd throw 30 touchdowns and rush for 10 touchdowns too.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know if we hold him to the same standards, or maybe we hold him to a higher standard than we do other players. Josh Allen, we don't talk about anybody around Josh Allen. It's just Josh Allen being Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson now has Derrick Henry, and he's won 2 MVPs. But you start, Joe Burrow. Well, he doesn't have a defense. Well, he does have maybe the best wide receiving core in the NFL. But we look at Jalen Hurts differently because this is a stats-driven league, stats-driven award. And it's not to say that Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen didn't have wonderful years. I'm just talking about value. And I think you could say this with all sincerity. You get to the playoffs, give me, how many quarterbacks would you take over Jalen Hurts in the playoffs? Okay? because that's where I see real value. Regular season, okay, Lamar's going to be great. Josh Allen's going to be great. Joe Burrow's going to be great. How many of those quarterbacks are you taking over Jalen Hurts? You're going to take Mahomes. I might take Josh Allen. Josh Allen's been a good performer in the postseason. He hasn't been able to get by Kansas City. We've seen Joe Burrow make a run. Lamar Jackson, I'm not taking Lamar Jackson over him. Run down the list of other quarterbacks there. I'm probably going to have Mahomes and then Jalen Hurts. Jaden Daniels hadn't shown me enough yet. C.J. Stroud hadn't shown me enough yet. I mean, this is a guy who outplayed Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. He won 1, but he outplayed him. He could have 2 Super Bowls, 2 MVPs, if you look at what he did in those Super Bowls. I know it's high praise, hyperbole, probably, overreaction, but I did see, it almost felt like the game was slowing down for him. He just saw everything in a different way. And sometimes it, crystallizes with quarterbacks, your first year or second or third or fourth. But if you look, and Chris Collinsworth brought this up, the guy plays for championships, whether it's, college or the NFL. He's in championship moments there, and it didn't seem too big last night. And his demeanor doesn't change. He is pretty cool. And it was on display last night. Now, the headlines will be what happened to start the game when Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott. And you got to have context with this. Now, I'm not exonerating Jalen Carter. In the moment, I didn't have any context. Nobody did. Because I didn't know that Dak Prescott was spitting when he was in the huddle. They're waiting for the official has to say, all right, you can break the huddle. Now we can get started. And Jalen Carter is probably 5 feet away, maybe, from Dak Prescott. And maybe his interpretation was, wait a minute, he's spitting in our direction. And then Jalen Carter comes over. And then all of a sudden you see him spit on Dak Prescott. Yes, Heaton.
Yeah, the thing that does make that a little funny is they're clearly jawing at each other, I think, because Jalen Carter is all by himself waiting there. And Dak walks 4 or 5 yards in order to spit between his two teammates.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was just standing there and spit. Dak walks almost 5 full yards. That's further than you think in order to spit between those guys when he could have just spit right at his own feet. Instead, he walked and approached him. That some of the video does start to make it look like there was a lot more going on there.
Here is Dak talking about the spitting incident.
I was right here by the 2 linemen, and guess I needed to spit, and I wasn't going to spit on my lineman, and I just spit ahead, but I would say he was back there where Jory was in that sense, and he asked, or he goes, "You trying to spit on me?" And at that point, I felt like he was insulting me. Like I wouldn't spit on somebody. I'm damn sure not trying to spit on you. Like we're about to play a game. I'm wondering why you're trying to mess with the rookie. And so when I stepped through, I actually say the words like, "What the hell would I? Excuse me, but I'm probably even more colorful. What would I need to spit on you for?" And he just spit on me in that moment, and it was more of a surprise than anything. Refs obviously saw it through the flag. I was like, hell yeah, we get 15 yards to start the game off.
And the ref is right there. Really easy call. Dak kind of goes, hello? He just spit on me. Here's Jalen Carter talking about his side of the story.
It was a mistake that happened on my side, and it just won't happen again. I feel bad for just my teammates and the fans out there. I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for my family also. But the fans, they show the most love. You heard them out there today. Just not being able to start the game, even finish the game is just me up. But we're gonna get it better. It won't happen again.
Okay. The NFL has placed a large emphasis this year, and that this was a topic in the offseason with teams and players, respect for the opponent. That's a big factor. Ross Tucker, who was doing the game with on Westwood One, talked about that as well. It's a really, really big point of emphasis. So the next question will be, will Jalen Carter be suspended? And I think given the context of this, now, once again, he got suspended for the entire game. And I think the league may factor that in. Now, do they fine him? I would be surprised if they suspend him for another game. If he did this in the second half of the game last night, then maybe he would be suspended for the following game. but he got suspended. Now, in my opinion, it might be a fine, but I would be surprised if they're going to suspend him again. Doesn't exonerate him for what he did. I understand what he's doing in the moment, and once you got to give these things context, because obviously you see it in the moment, and I'm going, why would he spit on him to start the season? And once again, these guys are hyped up. They've been in the locker room. They're ready to go. It's opening night, banner night, playing the Cowboys, ready to go. Wait, are you spitting at me? And then he approaches Dak, and then all of a sudden, he gets tossed. What a wild start to the game. Wild start. Yeah, Paulie.
I'd barely even settled down. I don't really even have the sound up, and I see a flag go in the air. I'm like, did they run a play? And it was like that scene in Slapshot, the hockey movie, where the guy punches the other guy during the national anthem. Like, how is a flag going on before the game started?
Philadelphia's lucky to get a win. Really lucky. Now, I always look at these losses at the beginning of the year. We tend to look at losses at the end of the year. Remember what I said on that Monday morning when the Bengals lost to the Patriots? I said, that's the kind of loss that comes back and keeps you out of the playoffs. And that's exactly what happened. You're going to have sloppy football this week and probably next week because most of these players haven't played. And if they have, it's just a little bit. And last night was kind of sloppy, or as Paulie would say, choppy. But I thought Dallas did enough to win that game. I just didn't understand why there wasn't, and I'm sure Dallas had a spy on Jalen Hurts. He wasn't James Bond. He didn't do a very good job. He was really good at hiding the fact that he was the spy on Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts felt like he had room to run. And this wasn't a tush push. He was able to, score legitimate touchdowns. But Saquon, he played okay. A.J. Brown had a couple of targets. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert had some catches there. But this was one of those games where if I'm Dallas and Brian Schottenheimer, that's his first NFL game as a head coach. And I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought they made enough plays to win that game. And that's one of those, if they had stolen that game, man, what would we be talking about? Yeah, Seton.
Last night watching the Eagles, it was kind of like a perfect example to me of why you need name brand players at the skill positions. Because you can't, Saquon Barkley is a name brand, right? And he's a guy. I thought he looked great, right? You have two superstar caliber wide receivers. You can't, and then plus you have Jalen Hurts, who was killing them last night. How are you going to cover everybody? You kind of can't. Yeah. That's, to me, it was like the ultimate view again into like, this is why you pay people. This is why you have stars at those positions.